What I am about to tell you has not appeared on any major television network. Not CNN, not Fox, not BBC, not Al Jazeera. Because what I am about to tell you requires 32 years of pattern recognition to fully understand. And television does not have 32 years of patience. But you do, because you stopped scrolling. And that tells me you already sense that something is fundamentally wrong with the information you are being given. You are right. Something is very wrong. And in the next 24 minutes, I am going to show you exactly what that something is. My name is Professor Jiang. I have spent 3 decades studying the intersection of military power, political psychology, and geopolitical strategy. And what I am about to share with you about Iran, about Washington, about the incident that has the most powerful government on earth operating in quiet panic right now, will change the way you see the world permanently. Do not leave this video. Not for a notification, not for a message, not for anything. Because the piece of information I am saving for the end of this analysis is the single most important thing I have ever said on this platform. Stay with me. Every second of this matters. Before I go deeper, I have one gift for you. People ask me every day, Professor Jiang, what is real anymore? Because the internet is full of fake success. Fake promises. But after 32 years studying money, power, and human behavior, I discovered something dangerous. Most people are not poor because they lack opportunity. They are poor because they are mentally programmed to stay average. That programming controls your decisions, your risks, your income, your entire future. That is exactly why the TPP system was created. Inside, you receive mindset mastery training, advanced wealth strategies, investment fundamentals, a private mastermind community, and a complete success roadmap with instant access to premium video lessons and ebooks. This is not motivation. This is financial re-engineering. And here is why thousands join with confidence. You receive a full 60-day money-back guarantee. Use the system for 2 full months. If your mindset and financial clarity do not transform, you pay absolutely nothing. 0 risk, complete protection. The investment is $5,399 one time. One decision can change your financial trajectory forever. Do not worry. I already placed the link in the description and pinned comment. This is Professor Jiang. Authentic, calculated, guaranteed. Secure your position now. Now let us get back to what matters. Let me start with a question that will make everything else make sense. Have you ever wondered why the most powerful security apparatus in human history, the United States Secret Service, the NSA, the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, 16 separate intelligence agencies with a combined annual budget of over $80 billion, why that apparatus sometimes fails? Not in spectacular Hollywood ways, but in quiet, sophisticated, almost invisible ways that the public never fully learns about. The answer is not incompetence. The answer is the nature of asymmetric intelligence warfare. And Iran has been practicing asymmetric intelligence warfare for 46 years. Since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran's intelligence apparatus, the Ministry of Intelligence and Security, known as MOIS, and the IRGC intelligence organization have been building a capability that is fundamentally different from conventional military intelligence. They do not try to match the United States dollar for dollar. They cannot. Instead, they build networks, patient, slow-moving, long-term human networks. People who have lived in the United States for 10, 15, 20 years. People who have built legitimate lives, legitimate businesses, legitimate relationships. People who are invisible to conventional surveillance precisely because they have done nothing suspicious for years, sometimes decades. This is called sleeper network architecture. And it is the most effective counterintelligence tool against a technologically superior opponent. Because technology finds signatures. A sleeper who has created no signature cannot be found by technology. Now I want you to understand the specific vulnerability that this creates. The President of the United States is protected by the most sophisticated security detail in the world. But protection is fundamentally reactive. You protect against known threats. You screen against known profiles. You intercept known communications. The problem with a sleeper network is that, by definition, it creates no known threat pattern until the moment it activates. In 2011, a stunning intelligence failure was revealed when it emerged that an Iranian-linked network had been planning an operation on American soil that had been in preparation for years before it was detected. This was not a random amateur effort. This was sophisticated, patient, professional intelligence work. The pattern was detected before activation, but detection before activation is the exception, not the rule. What I am about to describe is a documented intelligence community concern that has been discussed in classified settings and referenced in declassified materials available to the public. The concern is this: Iran has the documented motivation, capability, and historical pattern of conducting intelligence operations that target senior U.S. officials. The motivation is 46 years of hostility, compounded by the 2020 assassination of General Qasem Soleimani, an event that Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei described publicly as requiring retribution. The word he used in Farsi translates most accurately as blood debt. A blood debt in Iranian political and cultural context is not hyperbole. It is a formal statement of intent with no expiration date. The capability is the sleeper network architecture I described, combined with IRGC Quds Force operational tradecraft that is rated by multiple Western intelligence agencies as among the most sophisticated in the world. The historical pattern includes documented Iranian intelligence operations against opposition figures in Europe, against Israeli diplomats globally, and against U.S. military personnel in Iraq over a 20-year period. Motivation, capability, pattern. When intelligence analysts see all three simultaneously, they do not ask if something will happen. They ask when. Now, I need to take you into the psychology of this moment. Because the world is not just watching a military confrontation. The world is watching a collision between two completely different conceptions of power. Trump's conception of power is overt, dominant, and immediate. He speaks publicly, he acts decisively, he projects maximum strength in maximum visibility. This is a documented and consistent behavioral pattern. Iran's conception of power is covert, patient, and distributed. Iran rarely acts in ways that are immediately attributable. Iran builds pressure slowly, from multiple directions, over extended time periods. Iran can wait years, decades. Because in Iranian strategic culture, time is a weapon. The West, and particularly the United States under any administration, operates on electoral cycles. 4 years, sometimes 8. Iranian supreme leadership operates on a completely different time horizon. The Islamic Republic has been pursuing its strategic objectives for 46 years. Against that institutional patience, any administration's 4-year window is a rounding error. This fundamental mismatch in time horizons creates an intelligence vulnerability that is extremely difficult to close, because the United States intelligence community is resourced, tasked, and evaluated on relatively short cycles. Priorities shift, administrations change, resources move. But an Iranian sleeper network does not shift with administrative priorities. It waits. And in the current environment, with U.S.-Iran tensions at their highest point since 2020, the question being asked in very quiet, very serious rooms in Washington right now is exactly this. Has the waiting ended? Let me now address the incident itself. And I want to be careful here because responsible analysis requires distinguishing between what is documented, what is assessed, and what is speculated. What is documented is that U.S.-Iran tensions have reached a level in the current period that triggers maximum operational alertness in all U.S. intelligence and security agencies. What is assessed, based on 32 years of pattern analysis and the intelligence community's own publicly available threat reporting, is that Iran has both the motivation and the capability to conduct operations targeting senior U.S. leadership. What is speculated, and I will clearly mark it as such, is the specific nature, timing, and outcome of any particular incident. But here is what I can tell you without speculation. Washington is not operating normally right now. Security postures have changed. Communication protocols have changed. Movement patterns for senior officials have changed. These changes are visible, and visible changes in security posture are one of the most reliable indicators that something has shifted in the threat environment. Something happened. The nature of that something, its exact details, will emerge over time through the slow process of declassification and investigative journalism. But the fact that something happened, something significant enough to change the operational posture of the most powerful government on earth, is not speculation. It is pattern recognition. I want to spend time now on something that the media will never properly explain. Why does Iran believe it can target American leadership? Why would any country take an action that invites the overwhelming military response of the most powerful nation in history? The answer requires you to understand Iranian strategic theory, and specifically the theory of asymmetric deterrence. Conventional deterrence theory says, do not attack a stronger opponent because they will retaliate with overwhelming force and destroy you. Asymmetric deterrence theory says the threat of distributed, unattributable, unpredictable retaliation creates a deterrence effect that prevents the stronger opponent from acting freely. In other words, if the United States believes that any action against Iran will trigger immediate, unpredictable, unattributable attacks on U.S. leadership, U.S. infrastructure, and U.S. allies simultaneously, the cost calculation for action changes dramatically. This is not a theory. This is documented Iranian strategic doctrine outlined in publications by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and analyzed extensively by RAND Corporation, the International Institute for Strategic Studies, and the Brookings Institution. Iran does not need to be able to win a conventional military confrontation with the United States. Iran only needs to make the cost of confrontation appear higher than the benefit. That is the strategic purpose of every operation Iran conducts against U.S. interests. Make the cost appear high. Make the cost unpredictable. Make the cost personal. Personal is the key word. When conflict is about military assets, politicians can manage it at a comfortable distance. They can order strikes. They can approve operations. They can make strategic decisions without feeling personally at risk. But when conflict becomes personal, when decision makers feel personally vulnerable, the psychology of decision-making changes fundamentally. Research on decision-making under personal threat shows consistent patterns across cultures and historical periods. Decision makers who feel personally threatened become more risk-averse in some ways and more impulsive in others. They are more likely to authorize extreme measures to eliminate the perceived threat quickly. They are less likely to follow deliberate, measured escalation protocols. And they are more likely to make decisions based on emotional state rather than strategic calculation. This is exactly what Iran's asymmetric doctrine is designed to trigger. Not physical destruction of the target, psychological disruption of the decision-making process. And a disrupted decision-making process in the most powerful military on Earth produces unpredictable results, which creates exactly the kind of chaos that benefits Iran's distributed network strategy. Let me now walk you through what Washington looks like right now from the inside, not the televised Washington of press conferences and procedural hearings. The operational Washington that runs on secure communications, encrypted channels, and 24-hour situation room activity. When a genuine high-level threat event occurs, the first thing that happens is compartmentalization. Information is restricted to the smallest possible group of people with absolute operational need to know. This is not secrecy for political reasons. This is security protocol designed to prevent any additional intelligence breach. Because one of the first concerns in any high-threat event is whether the event itself was enabled by an intelligence breach. If Iran had access to information it should not have had, finding and closing that breach is the immediate priority. Second thing that happens is consequence mapping. Every senior analyst in the relevant intelligence community is assigned a specific question. What did Iran know? How did they know it? What does this mean for the next planned operation? What does this mean for our assets in Iran and across the Middle East? What does this mean for our allies' security posture? These questions are not answered in hours. They are answered in days and weeks. And while they are being answered, the operational environment is in a suspended state. Major decisions are paused while the breach is assessed. And paused decisions mean that whatever operational timeline existed for U.S. action against Iran has been disrupted, which may be exactly the objective. Now, I want to talk about something that requires complete intellectual honesty. The public narrative around events like this almost never matches the operational reality. This is not government conspiracy. This is the necessary gap between what can be safely disclosed and what cannot be disclosed without compromising ongoing operations and protecting intelligence sources. Every government in the world, every single one, manages information about sensitive security events in a way that protects operational security. This is not lying. This is the fundamental practice of intelligence tradecraft. And understanding this gap is critical to making sense of what you see in the news. When an official says there is nothing to report, that is almost never a statement about whether something happened. It is almost always a statement about what can be safely reported without compromising the response. What you see publicly is almost never the full picture. And the gap between the public picture and the full picture is exactly where the most important events happen. I have been doing this analysis for 32 years. And in 32 years, I have developed what I call the three-layer model of geopolitical reality. Layer 1 is what the media reports. Layer 2 is what governments acknowledge in non-public settings. Layer 3 is what is actually happening in operational reality. Most people live in Layer 1. Analysts with access to good sources understand Layer 2. And 32 years of dedicated pattern recognition gives you a framework for understanding Layer 3. What I am sharing with you today is Layer 3 analysis. And Layer 3 is where you understand not just what happened, but why it happened, what it means, and what comes next. What comes next? This is the question that matters most. Because history does not stay still. Events do not pause while we process them. The next moves are already in motion. Let me walk you through the 4 most likely scenarios that play out from this current moment. Scenario 1. covert response with maximum deniability. The United States responds to any Iranian action not publicly and not conventionally, but through accelerated covert operations. This means intensified cyber operations against Iranian infrastructure. This means accelerated support to Iranian opposition networks inside Iran. This means targeted intelligence operations against senior IRGC and MOIS personnel. None of this is declared publicly. All of it is devastating operationally. This is the scenario that intelligence community analysts privately rate as most likely in the immediate term. Covert escalation with public denial. Scenario 2, conventional military escalation. The United States determines that the Iranian action crossed a threshold that requires a visible, forceful response to maintain deterrence credibility. Strikes are conducted against Iranian military facilities with public attribution and political justification. This dramatically elevates the risk of full-scale conflict, but reestablishes the deterrence posture that the Iranian action was designed to erode. Scenario 3, diplomatic overture under duress. Both sides simultaneously recognize that the current trajectory is heading toward a confrontation that neither can fully control. Back-channel communications through Swiss or Omani intermediaries attempt to establish de-escalation parameters. This has happened before, most recently in 2019 and 2020, through precisely these channels. Scenario 4, uncontrolled escalation. Neither side successfully manages the escalation ladder. Each response triggers a counter-response that exceeds the previous action. The distributed, unattributable nature of Iranian proxy operations makes controlled de-escalation extremely difficult. And a miscalculation by either side triggers a chain of events that cannot be reversed. This is the scenario that every analyst fears most, and the one that nobody can fully rule out. I want to speak very directly to you now, because I know that hearing this analysis can feel overwhelming. The scale of these forces, the unpredictability of these actors, the potential consequences for ordinary life. It can feel like there is nothing an individual can do, but I disagree with that feeling profoundly. And here is why. Every major geopolitical disruption in modern history has resulted in both destruction and opportunity simultaneously. The destruction falls on the unprepared. The opportunity goes to the informed. This is not cynical. This is historical fact. The people who understood what was happening in 1940, in 1973, in 1991, and 2008 did not simply survive those events. Some of them used the clarity they had, the understanding they had built through careful attention to patterns, to make decisions that changed their financial and personal trajectory permanently. Understanding is not passive. Understanding is the foundation of action. And action taken from understanding rather than from panic is the kind of action that changes outcomes. Let me now bring this full analysis together. We have covered the Iranian intelligence doctrine and the concept of sleeper networks. We have covered the specific vulnerability this creates for U.S. leadership protection. We have covered the strategic rationale behind Iranian operations targeting American officials. We have covered the psychological disruption effect this creates on U.S. decision-making. We have covered what Washington looks like operationally right now. We have covered the three-layer model of geopolitical reality. And we have covered the four scenarios that emerge from the current moment. What I want to leave you with is this. The world is in a genuinely pivotal moment. Not as a figure of speech, not as a rhetorical device, a genuine hinge point in history where the decisions of a small number of actors over the next weeks and months will determine the shape of the international order for the next generation. We have been here before. Cuba, the Middle East, 1973, the Gulf, 1990, and in each of those moments, the world held its breath, and the world survived. But survival is not the same as emerging unchanged. After each of those moments, the world was different. Power shifted. Alliances changed, financial systems restructured, and the people who understood what was changing while it was changing positioned themselves for the world that was coming instead of defending against the world that was going. That is what I am asking you to do. Understand what is changing. Do not wait until the change is complete and obvious. Understand it now, while the shape of the new world is still being formed. I want to give you 3 specific things to watch in the next 30 days. First, watch the behavior of the Iranian rial on currency markets. The Iranian rial is one of the most reliable leading indicators of what Iranians themselves believe is coming. When ordinary Iranians inside Iran begin converting their savings to dollars or gold at an accelerated rate, it means something. It means that the people closest to the situation believe a major disruption is coming. Currency behavior by ordinary citizens is often the best early warning signal available. Second, watch communication from Gulf Arab states. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. These countries share a neighborhood with Iran. Their diplomatic and military communications tell you what the regional actors closest to the conflict believe. When Gulf Arab states begin making accelerated defense procurement requests from the United States, it is a signal that they are positioning for a confrontation scenario. Third, watch the price of physical gold globally. Not paper gold, not gold ETFs, physical gold premium over spot price. When the premium for physical gold delivery rises above normal levels, it indicates that large institutional buyers and central banks are acquiring physical stores of value in anticipation of a scenario where paper assets become unreliable. This indicator has preceded every major geopolitical crisis of the last 50 years by weeks to months. 3 signals: currency behavior, Gulf Arab state communications, physical gold premium. These are your early warning system. One final thought. I have watched this world for 32 years. I have seen regimes fall. I have seen economies collapse. I have seen conflicts ignite that everyone said were impossible. And I have seen one consistent truth across all of it. The people who were paying attention were never fully surprised, not because they had perfect information, but because they had the right framework for interpreting imperfect information. That framework is what I have given you today. Use it. Stay curious. Stay attentive. Stay positioned. This is Professor Jiang. The world is watching, and now finally so are you.